Hey guys, remember to like the video and hit subscribe.
If you were to ask a pollster like Ezra Klein, he would tell you not to waste your time in Oklahoma. But you know what Bernie Sanders said to those people? He said, I do not want to be a part of a government that sees red and blue states. I want to be a part of a government that leads, that delivers for the American people. When I went to the U.S. Senate, I said I was going to stand up for the United States of America. That's what I'm here to do today. And people were losing it, man. They couldn't believe that somebody actually showed up for them. You're telling me that if you put on national television, Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Kamala Harris, Beto O'Rourke, take your pick. Famous people, Gavin Newsom from the party, they all show up to West Virginia, whoever it is that you can get. I'm not saying all these people would agree, but a lot of them would agree because everybody loves to have their picture taken with the president, and they would have shown up, and it would have been a huge event, and it would have shown the American people that Joe Biden was going to fight for them. Sometimes optics matter. That would have been a time that optics matter. I'm not saying it would have worked. I'm saying the American people would have been like, yeah, Joe, thank you for showing up for us, which you've never done over the time you're president.
You need Manchin, in a 50-50 Senate, you need Manchin's vote for literally every single piece of legislation that you want to get done. And you're...
Can we get these guys to be so unhinged that they're like, well, maybe he could start primarying Republicans. Maybe he could bully pulpit Republicans.
Saying that the very first thing he should have done is gone to civil war with Joe Manchin and threatened the primary because we didn't get one particular provision.
I mean, is that not what Trump does with the defectors in his caucus? Like, is that not?
Do we really want to emulate? Like, do you?
No, Hutch shouldn't have even gone there. You should just say Trump doesn't have a 50-50 Senate.
Who want a Republican to a Democratic Party?
Well, wait a minute. Personally, I think that elides the point. Well, wait a minute. I think you got to address this, and it goes all the way back to. I've been spending the last 30 minutes trying to look for what Pisco had to say about Mike Johnson's first vote, and I can't find your damn thing. That motherfucker. There's nothing on it. Fuck you, Pisco. But listen, I think it elides the point that they're making, which is it doesn't matter if you want people to emulate Trump or not. They're making the case that it is possible for presidents to bully their parties into line.
Yes, it's called whipping.
I want you to deal, Hutch, I do want you to deal with the Trump example. Either refute it or say yes, but that's Trump.
No, you can do it. You can bully people, but it has to be realistic. This is so weird. Like, you can bully people to do things, but you have to have power. You have to have leverage to do it. Like, if you had like a 54-46 Senate or 53, 3-vote lead in the Senate, you can start looking at people and be like, all right, well, which one of you disloyal motherfuckers, right? Especially depending on the districts they hold in the states. But this is a factual conversation you have to have, not an emotional, conceptual conversation of like who can, fire off the most tweets or whatever.
Virginia. It's West Virginia. So can I step in? I want to say
no. Man, let Hutch respond.
Why are you flip-flopping when you were agreeing with me when we had the same conversation?
You're
flip-flopping because you're Vanguard boys are on the podcast.
Man, I'm about to roundhouse kick Pisco. He already has the beard off and take the mustache off the next time I see him. And then you and I, Hutch, listen, you're so tall. I'm gonna kick the shit out of your ankles. Listen to me, real quick.
See, Hutch, there's a W right there. I'm 5'7", so whenever if I've ever hurt your feelings, you just fall asleep at night knowing that
I know, man. Us short people. I know he's like 6'4". I know. I agree.
Let me stop you. Okay, you go to war with Joe Manchin. You say I'm going to primary you. Hold on. I'm going to fuck your mom and I'm going to primary you and we're going to replace you. Okay. And he says, you know what?
You don't even know where her urn is.
Hold on.
And then he says, you know what? I don't like this at all. I'm an independent. You guys don't get the majority. That's that. What do you do?
Hard to bully Manchin. Hard to bully Milton. I want to agree with
what do you do?
Would you just let me get through the fucking thing? Shut up and let me get through the sentence.
All right, Pisco wants to talk.
Shut up for a second. I agree with you that Joe Manchin was not bullyable. I want you to address the notion they brought up Trump. And I can't speak for Pisco.
Are you stupid? So the response, Manchin is not bullyable, is a response to your question is, why don't you bully? Okay,
that wasn't my fucking question.
Why don't you bully Trump and bully?
It literally
was. You're like,
yeah, we can go back and play the tape where I said you are not. Your point elides theirs. I said they are saying that a president can theoretically bully a party. I want you to address
what my position is, just because I think you guys are splitting hairs here, right? Because I think that it's fair to address what Hutch is saying, right? Which is the fact that Joe Manchin might say, "You then, I am eat a bag of dicks," and go
like. You don't want to copy Trump's electoral strategy from term one. Trump was not a legislatively successful president. Even when he had majorities, he didn't really accomplish that much. So I don't know why you even think it's a good model. Like Trump, they're talking about, oh, well, Trump bullies people. Yeah, when he's got big majorities in both houses of Congress, but it's not very impressive. Like, you want to copy these guys you want to copy the Republicans who couldn't hold on to their House majority seat? For the first time in U.S. history, they couldn't maintain their House majority speaker position? Like, come on.
But here's the thing. The American people are tired of getting crumbs, right? They already expect you to kind of be like, okay, the Republicans beat us, blah, blah, blah. You have to find a way to win. So you get on... Say you get on your infrastructure bill, right? You get Joe Manchin doesn't vote for it. Do you not see what Donald Trump has proven that you can do without Congress? You say, guys, give me 2 more years. Okay, or however long Joe Manchin had left.
Okay, well, that's a much different statement. If you want somebody to be like an authoritarian, then sure, but...
But I think the ultimate problem is not so much Biden's treatment of Joe Manchin, but it's the fact that he didn't even seem like he cared about the policy in the first place. We're talking about these policies that he's supposed to be fighting for, but no one even knows he supports.
It's not these policies that he's supposed to be fighting for. It's your pet projects because you're a rich white dude who doesn't give a fuck about anything else in this country. 15 hours, 15 hours, 15. That's all you think about. That's all you know about. Probably because you heard it fall out of fucking Bernie Sanders' mouth, and that's it. You don't care about policies or anything. You just care about 15, and maybe student loan forgiveness. But you don't bring that one up because Biden did fight a lot on that one. Like, that's it.
Like I said, he'd have a lot better chance of getting reelected and of being popular if people felt like he gave a fuck about this, if they felt like it was actually something on his agenda, not something that could conveniently hit the cutting room floor as soon as he runs into any sort of obstruction.
Like, if Trump was so good about making people feel like he cared and Trump did all these things so well, why did he lose his election? Trump lost in 2021. Why do people always forget that? You know that Trump didn't win that election, right? So why would you look to Trump, who had 4 years and then lost, as the template for what we should be copying? This doesn't make any sense.
From his own party. And that's exactly how it felt. It felt like Joe Biden was more than happy to use that as an excuse to say, oh, sorry guys, what do you want me to do? The thing I promised to do is now on the cutting room floor because of these things that I knew would be an issue before I promised it. So it's like, why the f do you even promise it? Just to lie to everyone and get their hopes up? You knew this would be a problem.
If you didn't run on it, you'd be like, why aren't you running on it?
No, I'd rather he be honest. I genuinely would rather he be honest. I would. And I voted for politicians who aren't running on it. I voted for Kamala Harris, even though she was running on a bunch of shit that I hated, including going around talking about how all the #1 CEOs and corporation leaders in the company signed off on all of her stupid crypto policies and all her AI bullshit. Like, at least she was honest about it. I don't actually think that it's a good idea, though, to run for something or, win.
Did this person vote for Kamala? Or is he in a state? Is he live in California? He's like, oh, my vote doesn't matter anyway. I'm curious.
A primary based on these ideas, including a public option and a $15 an hour minimum wage, things that would substantially uplift America.
Oh, and he brought it up. At least he said public option instead of Medicare for all. You think that that's what Biden needed to do, was push for a public option and 15 an hour minimum wage? So what, he could have done nothing? He could have gotten nothing done?
Americans who desperately need it, and then immediately say, sorry, oops, some bullshit happened, and now I have to, throw you under the bus and renege on this promise.
You don't seem to fully appreciate the role of the Congress. Period. End of story.
No, like I just said, though, he didn't even try to make, like with various politicians that understand.
True. Like, that's it. Hutch is right. Like, this is this is an unserious conversation. This is for this should be like a kindergartner chat, but whatever, that some school hosts. This is a deeply unserious conversation right now.
And this issue, they know that, and they build a pressure campaign to make it so that it's political suicide for you to oppose.
And then you just say like vague bullshit like this. Build a pressure campaign. Do the bully pulpit. Pressure. Let's talk. Let's talk numbers. Let's talk people. Let's talk states. We already said you can't bully Manchin. So who else? Like, if Manchin says no, what are you going to do? You're going to go to bully a Republican, or what is the pressure campaign? Pressure against who?
Understand this issue. They know that, and they build a pressure campaign to make it so that it's political suicide for you to oppose these policies. Joe Biden didn't do that with the right policies. He did it with the wrong ones and bungled the ones that he was right about, like the Afghanistan war.
It wasn't even just Manchin. Like, Cinema was... Pisco, I know you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm going to be a bridge builder here for sure, 100%, because I'm going to yell in kind of both directions. On the one hand, you can't bully Manchin, but I think that there's a kind of lesson from the Inflation Reduction Act. Everyone said that the environmental policy that Biden was trying to push was dead in the water. They said it for months and months and months and months. The Inflation Reduction Act was a surprise for a lot of people, and I think give Biden some credit. I think that that's an incredible package in terms of now it's being diluted and somewhat destroyed by Trump.
But he lost the following election, Pisco. That's the problem.
No, I
So did Trump.
I agree to that. I think that's Biden's greatest failure is, and this
the
is
presidency has to be an 8-year project in the year 2025, is my view. So I think that if you fail the first time with Joe Manchin, you have to dedicate your entire presidency to fucking him and replacing the seat.
100%.
100%. You just said you couldn't bully Manchin.
Whoa! So 100% on the notion. I don't know why you're so triggered, Hutch. So first of all, I was defending that you can't bully Manchin, but
why Hutch is not triggered? They just said something retarded. Why are people okay having? Oh man, what's the name for this fallacy? It's kind of like a gish gallop. People will say something wrong, you'll correct it, and then you'll move on to the argument, and they'll just bring up the wrong thing again. And it's like, I thought we addressed this. Hello? And they're like, oh yeah, okay. And then you go to the guy, and then they bring up like the wrong thing again. And it's like, no, why do you keep bringing this up?
On the specific notion that the presidency is an 8-year project, that is 100% true. I totally agree with that. That's what I said 100% agree with. Hutch, do you have a problem with me saying I agree with that point?
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. So just to be clear, I totally agree. You can't really bully Manchin. You have to go.
You have to primary him. That's why it's an 8-year project.
But I will say the following: to pretend that Joe Biden, and this is all coming out from reporting.
Wait, so do we primary Manchin or not? The guy who's not running again, that we all agreed that you can't primary. I'm sorry, I keep getting mixed up.
You have a problem with me saying I agree with that point?
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. So just to be clear, I totally agree. You can't really bully Manchin. You have to go
primary him. That's why it's an 8-year project.
But I will say the following: to pretend that Joe Biden, and this is all coming out from reporting, was engaged as he should have been on domestic fronts, is now proving more and more to be untrue. It appears that it appears that he outsourced domestic policy to Ron Klain. He had minimal meetings with his cabinet.
He didn't even do cabinet meetings. I was about to say that.
And so it's a systemic problem of Biden in terms of his failures as a communicator and his failure of engagement on the domestic front. And that is unfortunately a legacy that I do think has contributed to the rise of Trump. That's not to say, and I don't want to denigrate the good domestic agenda that was done. I think the Vanguard, I think, is what Biden did. He got tangible wins for the American people domestically in a way that other presidents didn't. I didn't hear you really to say that that's not true. I think you said it was like watered down. I think it's watered down because he was trying to build bridges where he could, but he did pass through some historic legislation. I think you guys would acknowledge that.
Oh, but 100% he did. My problem is that he embraced bipartisanship in a way that was totally detrimental in a time when he should have been fighting. I feel like what people
he embraced it when he had to. It was a divided government.
He embraced bipartisanship. What a retard with a 50-50 Senate with 2 wild cards for the Democrats. Like,
he was doing bipartisan stuff. He had to do bipartisan stuff. What other
And
choice
guess
do you
what?
have?
The people said, we don't want you anymore. We want a guy that's going to go play hardball.
To be
So my
fair,
argument-
I do think it was Joe Biden's age made it basically he was unreelectable. Like I do feel he was so old, he was so in cognitive decline that like that ultimately had more to do with the way people voted for him than like the Joe Manchin thing.
Oh, so now this guy just completely switched up to a different argument. So now none of the other stuff mattered, and he said actually I think it was just because he's old, and the Manchin stuff didn't actually matter at all. So now we just completely switched to it, a whole different pillar.
To be fair, I do
argument-
think it was Joe Biden's age made it basically he was unreelectable. Like I do feel he was so old, he was so in cognitive decline that like that ultimately had more to do with the way people voted for him than like the Joe Manchin thing. To be totally fair to Joe Biden, and I also think that if Joe Biden had been a younger version of himself, he would have been able to better communicate the wins that he did secure. Because that was another huge thing. The communications department in the last administration was just pathetic. They didn't brag about anything that they accomplished. Most people didn't even know what they accomplished, even though, as you mentioned a couple times accurately, they accomplished more than previous administrations had.
I fully agree with your. So like, what's going on right now with the Democratic Party is they are just fully in terms of acclimating to this new paradigm of media. They don't understand the climate whatsoever. And so Biden did go out there and like visit like small cities in Michigan and Pennsylvania to celebrate, the impact of the infrastructure deal. But who the fuck was there? It was like C-SPAN with like 17.
Yes, thank you. The problem, I used to say this, is not true. The problem is not Biden taking credit for his wins or the Democratic Party taking credit for the wins. It's the fact that no one in the media gave a f. They never gave a f. They were always covering random retarded f, whatever Trump was tweeting about that day or whatever the f else. Nobody gave a f. Or the American public just doesn't give a f. You need to make them give a f.
Cities in Michigan and Pennsylvania to celebrate, the impact of the infrastructure deal. But who the fuck was there? It was like C-SPAN with like 17 viewers. Nobody was tweeting about it. Nobody was
Sucks at
talking
media,
about it.
and that's half the job now.
Yes, exactly.
He sucked at media? Biden isn't media. Biden is the president of the United States. He's not a media person. He can give interviews, but nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah, I agree.
He's just, like Hutch is literally pointing out that he did they were doing shows or demonstrations or whatever else. Not demonstrations. Rallies or whatever. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody cares. Like, do we want the media president? Is that what we need? Do we need somebody like Trump who wants to give 3 live streams a day? This guy's going live from the Oval Office 6 hours a day.
I agree with all of it. I agree with all of it.
Right, and I think you agree with this part, and so that's why I'm glad, because I think that's part of what's being spoken about from the Vanguard is the communication part is 50% of more than 50% of the job now. Both internal communications, that is to your other stakeholders within the government, other branches of government, that's to Joe Manchin, and he was able to negotiate, but it was delayed, right, the Inflation Reduction Act, and also externally, right, and getting public support for ideas, getting pressure, right. MAGA is able to, or Trump at times, I think less so now, is able to leverage this like momentum, right, and you often feel it, right, like you get this report, and a lot of it's theater for sure, but
Even before Trump. Remember the Rhino label? Like Republicans have always been better at shaming their defectors, whereas Democrats, like you never saw Joe Biden taunting Joe Manchin and saying this guy, he's a dino, he's a traitor, he's helping Donald Trump, he's a secret Republican, who's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
So now we're back to the Manchin point. We all just agreed that he's not even running for re-election. Why do we keep bringing Manchin up? You can't do anything to him.
That's what he should have said, not just because it's good politics, but because it's true. Joe Manchin is a piece of shit.
So now we get no legislation. So now Manchin defects on every vote in the Senate. And what do we get for that again?
Wait, hold on. You have not reconciled the obvious problem with this. Let's say he does that. Let's say you're a dino. I'm a primary. I'm a mom. And he says, I don't like your posture. You have no leverage over me. I'm going to be independent. And you
imprison him.
No, I'm serious. Like, how do you reconcile with that?
100%. Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. That's why.
You can't say that's a fair point. That just completely contradicted every single thing you just said. You can't yes and that. It completely contradicted everything that was just said here.
Pisco and I shared the moment where we agreed that, hey, this is an 8-year project, right? When you're battling a Congress that is 100% against the American people, like Joe Manchin, like Kristen Sinema, right? You can't accomplish the goals. The American people just voted, and we're operating under the time Joe Biden's just getting into office, right? Okay, they voted for him to be an antidote to Donald Trump. They're scared because of COVID. They want somebody who's competent. They want, vaccine rollout that's sufficient, right? They want all of these things. That's what he's been voted on. So you have to say, this man is standing in the way of what I want to accomplish. If you want a higher minimum wage, we need to know that this man is standing in the way of it. You make him a pariah. You make his name mud in Washington. In the meantime, you do not pass that piece of pivotal legislation. You go to town with every single executive order that comes across your desk. You make that man's life hell, and you also go to work uplifting the American people. You declare a state of emergency. You talk about how healthcare is a human right. You talk about how we're going to do every single thing you can. We're going to make sure that nobody pays a cent of student loans as long as I'm president, right? We're going to make sure that we fight it in the court and not a dollar is collected, and we fight all the insurance or the interest rates all the way. We go after everything that we could do with worker protection to make sure that it's harder to exploit your workforce. Let's make sure that we're supplementing every single court that we can along the way to make sure that a company like Uber doesn't get to contract their drivers as a 1099 employee that has to pay a bunch of taxes at the end of the year and gets totally wrapped. Let's make sure that we're uplifting those people at every step of the way. I think these are ideas that we would all agree are going to be beneficial and tangible to the American people. And then over your 8-year presidency, you do start to accomplish the goals that you need the power of Congress to do, right? Because nobody can just, overrule Congress, although Donald Trump is giving it a run for his money right now, and he even has control of Congress, right? So you say we're going to do every single thing that we can from the power of the desk. We're going to fight everything in the court, and we're going to make your life as good as we can while we get rid of Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, and bring back the party of the people.
Okay, so let's game this out. So it's ARP negotiations. It's the first 2 months of the presidency. This is his first.
Nope, not fair. Nope, Hutch is a retard. Are we about to talk specifics? No, cringe. Can we just talk about like our cool, like broad, like concepts and theories? And like I think these are way more fun. Hutch is going to be cringe and talk about specifics now. He wants to get in the weeds
and bring back the party of the people.
okay, so let's game this out. So it's ARP negotiations. It's the first 2 months of the presidency. This is his first bill that he wants to get passed. He does exactly what you're saying right now. He goes to war with Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin defects. He loses control of Congress. Now,
Why would you lose control of Congress? You're just stacking the deck in your favor.
No, hold on. I just told you that there would be a risk that Joe Manchin would defect and say, I don't like the way you're treating me, you, I'm going to defect. There was absolutely a risk of him doing that, by the way.
So we can play this counterfactual game all day.
Are you acknowledging or not that there was a risk for him to defect in that way if Trump...
Yes, but you're telling me that after that
everything
defection, that Joe Biden loses Congress. I disagree with that. That's what I'm disputing.
If you give that Senate gavel, do they have a gavel in the Senate? If you give that gavel to Mitch McConnell, now not only do you not get the IRA, which did a lot of really good shit, and not just for environment, but also for...
Wait, hold on. Imagine all these bad things happen. I could say imagine all these good things happen because I did all these executive orders.
Do you not just... Okay, hang on. Podcast. I guess. Hold on. I need to not feel crazy for a second. Podcast bros. Do you think it was possible that if Biden would have done what they're suggesting that he should have done, that Manchin could have switched parties?
He didn't have the talent. Biden, it was too old. He couldn't do it.
Oh my God. What were you gonna do?
So this whole thing is, I agree with you, Hutch, in the sense that he couldn't do it. He did not have the capacity to do it. And Manchin, although I don't know that Manchin would be the type to like just never vote on judicial nominees anymore because you're talking some shit. And I think that there are ways he could have done it. But like fundamentally, I agree.
We're not talking about judicial nominees. We're talking about legislation.
It's not possible. Biden could not have done it. He did not have it in him. It's not in his character to do the kind of play that the Vanguard are talking about.
It was 40-year-old Biden in his prime. Could he have forced a $15 an hour minimum wage on Manchin?
No, Hutch,
Force the issue?
obviously to your point, Hutch, it's clear that what you're saying is...
On Pisco Dodgers like a snake. Listen, Hutch. Oh, that was such a good question from Hutch, right? Now rather than, what should Biden have done? Now we're like, well, Biden could have never done it. And I was just, okay, what if he was 40 years old? You think he could have gotten Manchin to the 15-hour minimum wage? And then he takes a drink and he lets someone else take over. He should have forced an answer from that question.
It's true that it was a possibility that it would happen. I mean, I think that what's fair, I guess, to say, obviously to your point, Hutch, it's clear that what you're saying is true that it was a possibility that it would happen. I mean, I think that...
What are these talking points?
What's fair, I guess, to say at least is that literally did happen with both Manchin and Sinema. They both turned independent eventually.
Why are you doing this?
But they supported the legislation. Why didn't they? Or did Manchin and Sinema defect from key legislation that they got enough Republican votes on? For the infrastructure bill, for the Inflation Reduction Act, for the CHIPS Act, and for the and for ARPA, the American Reinvestment Plan or whatever, were those passed without Manchin and Sinema? Somebody look it up.
This is like wildly disingenuous. He switched parties
Why is that disingenuous?
He switched parties after they lost control of Congress when it didn't matter, bro. That's irrelevant.
Oh, nice. Hutch knows the answer.
Hutch, but I think what you've never addressed is this idea that, I mean, I've already conceded.
What Hutch has never addressed? Holy shit. I would lose it on the show, dude.
Like personally, I don't know if the Vanguard boys would agree with me, but like I've already conceded that. Look, you might have a world where you do what the Vanguard guys are saying, and all of a sudden Manchin goes independent, 2 years earlier, and maybe you don't get the IRA passed, and you have to deal with like the current subsidies instead of the expanded ones or whatever. Like that's a risk that you have. And similarly, and I compared to the Trump project that he loses a lot of elections that he would maybe otherwise be able to win because he endorses radicals in primaries, and they end up winning the primaries. But again, that long-term compositional change of the Republican Party seems to have netted them out policy wins when they're actually able to control the government, right? And I think that Democrats,
but they don't have policy wins explicitly. Trump just ramrods through as many executive orders as he can, and that's it. Where's our border bill? Where's anything besides the tax bill? Where is the full repeal of Obamacare? Never came. It's not coming. What are the big policy wins from Donald Trump?
I think the Democrats probably should engage in a similar project for the long term.
For the long term? Remember, Donald Trump lost his election. He lost the second election, so he wasn't even a two-term president sequentially. Number one. Number two, long term. What is the Republican Party going to look like in 2028 when Trump is gone? Because every Republican behind closed doors is petrified of that right now. And I think they're probably terrified of what the midterms are going to look like, because every midterm has been pretty disappointing that Trump is backed as well. Like, Trump is not the go-to guy for politics. I don't know where they get this delusion from.
Term health of, at this point, the country.
So you would give up 200 plus judicial appointments in every piece of legislation that he passed just for this vague notion of like, we're going to be a party of fighters now?
But see, Hutch is asking like a specific question because these are the things that actually got passed. You want to put all these things at risk for some big thing, and then they always like respond like, well, who knows what would have happened? Who knows? Wait. Maybe he'll have a more substantive answer.
But Hutch, I think that the problem is that I really believe in the Democratic Party platform, right? Like, I think it's not just like, oh, it'd be nice to have, these are marginal improvements. Like, we're talking about,
it's just all they're having different conversations here.
You said you take seriously the idea that the threats to democracy, and this is such a big deal. And I think that for the long-term health of the country, and also just like the people in the country, to the Vanguard boys' point, the idea of like having a universal healthcare system, having like a high wage floor.
Oh my God, that's what the fight should have been over. Was single payer and 15 an hour minimum wage. Really?
These kind of like expansive welfare policies and things like that. Like our policies are so bad.
I feel like I am answering it, right? So
He's not. Yeah. No, that's why I said they're having two different conversations.
Are you saying that that would be an acceptable sacrifice? No 200 plus judges and all that legislation, none of that. Are you saying cutting all of that would be worth it to
Hutch, it's obviously Hutch. It's a question of expected value and the risks you're willing to take. So I don't like the idea of what the scenario that you're painting. If there's a 100% scenario that what you're saying happens, you might think a little bit differently about it. But there's obviously not a 100% chance, right? There's every chance in the world that you engage in this project, and maybe the idyllic version of what the Vanguard is talking about would happen. Or
what? Some Republicans switch parties?
at the very least, something settles out in the middle or something. Like, you never really know how these things are going to go. But I was just going to say, last sentence, that I think establishing a basic standard within the Democratic Party that, hey, I don't care if you don't like this policy. We have to do these things, not only because, it's the platform that we ran on and maybe there's some long-term gains to that, but also it's just really good for the American people, Hutch. And it's worth saying, hey, moderate asshole, you, we have to actually get this done because it's good.
This is the progressive mind rot. Is everybody likes this, trust us. Even if all the politicians and lawmakers are complaining, even if a lot of the constituents might vote differently, trust me, this is good for the American people. They're just too stupid to realize it. They don't know it, but trust me, they'll love this, okay? Trust me.
You don't need to do the thing where you're like, I'm the one that actually cares about these policies. Meanwhile, you would pursue a strategy that would result in no judicial appointments and no pieces of legislation.
You don't know that for sure, Hutch. It's the risk that you're willing to take, right?
Okay, let's put the risk aside. What is the possible benefit? Are you going to move Joe Manchin on this? Yes or no?
He moved on the IRA.
Well, yeah, I don't.
Hold on. Are you going to move him on $15 an hour?
No, Hutch, to answer your question, to answer your question as directly as I can, it is irrelevant to my point. I don't think so.
Wait, he moved on the IRA because Biden threatened to primary him? Maybe he just supported the IRA. What was Manchin's statements on the IRA? I know there was negotiating, I think, done between him and Biden. I think that was specifically written about. I feel like I read stories, but it wasn't because Biden threatened to primary him.
Hutch, to answer your question, to answer your question as directly as I can, it is irrelevant to my point. I don't think so. Ultimately, that you're able to get.
It's irrelevant. It is irrelevant. True. Let's see, he's honest. That's what I'm saying. These are two different conversations.
To answer your question as directly as I can, it is irrelevant to my point. I don't think so. Ultimately, that you're able to get.
Benefit analysis. What is the possible benefit, right?
It's all ended with Donald Trump being our president. How can you act like the risk-benefit analysis worked out in our favor? That's the whole problem right here.
What a retrospective. Nice. Oh shit. We just see the future.
Talking about the weeds here, we got the fascists in power as a result of this because the American people didn't believe that Democrats could fight anything, including a fascist. And so now we've got people getting black bagged off of the street. Now we don't have a Department of Education. Now 12 million people are losing their Medicaid. Now the hospital I was born in can no longer deliver babies in the east side of Kansas City, Missouri, because they said those black mothers that largely make it up nowadays because of gentrification and the fact that all of these people have been shoved to the east poor side of Kansas City aren't worth it to have their own NICU or any kind of delivery services. These are the real life consequences of Donald Trump. And because the Democrats thought they could people and lie to them about, we're actually fighting for $15 in minimum wage, or we're actually going to cancel your student loans, when they never had an intention of doing it.
They never had an intention of doing it? Well, anybody on this podcast who knows how many different executive orders and different routes did Biden go through on this stupid student loan shit? Also, fuck all of you and fuck student loans. Pay them, you lazy fucks. Is anybody else on this show besides Hutch going to call them out? That's just a lie, right? How stupid.
Rolled over immediately, so they lost in hand.
They never had the intention of doing student loans?
Thank you, Hutch.
No.
Anybody else going to back him up on this point? Hello?
They did not.
Well, why did he do it?
Did it work out? You know what I'm saying?
Did it work out? You didn't ask if it worked out. You asked me the intention to do anything about it. There were 3 different pathways that he tried to cancel student loan debt on. He got challenged to the courts. People in Congress attacked him for it.
Listen to yourself.
What do you mean
People
it didn't work out?
Oh, the Republicans struck it down. That's what the Democrats always say.
No, the court struck it down, bro.
The courts.
Well, we got to pack the court.
Well, okay. I think the Vanguard walked into a bad one because obviously student loans was one where Biden seemed to actually he did actually try to cancel student loan debt.
Thank you.
Broadly, but that's I think that
did he try it once by executive order?
He tried to cancel.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that Biden deserves all the credit in the world for the student loan stuff.
There we
I think
go.
there's one additional thing he could have tried, but I really think he went through all the stops to try to get that passed.
What's the one additional thing you think he could have tried?
I think he should have shredded up all the loan documents for every individual in the country after they lost the election.
What?
And
just as a core executive power, just shred all of the loan documents and officially renunciate all the loans. Now that might have had some problems, but if you make it impracticable for anybody to prove that those loans exist, I think that's the one additional thing he could have done. But that's not in Biden's case.
I mean, the debt is still there. You would have to account for it. That's okay. Well, I guess
character to do that. There could have been other ways, other documentation, but it would have been such a mess. But I do think he should have done it.
That's imagine the political capital Republic.
I like how this guy. Fuck you, Krobmeister. Wait, ban that guy. Okay, I was gonna say this first. Fuck you. He goes the guy who said that Biden was deeply immoral and unethical for pardoning his son in advance because he knew that Trump was gonna go after him, but that it would have been moral and ethical to shred all of the documents accounting for all of the student loans. Wait, what?
Republicans would have to expand.
I just can't accept the
we're,
fact that
we're going
Donald
back
Trump's
trying to
abolished
take
the
this shit
Department of
together.
Education and that we cannot figure out a way. Like, how can you be the president that pen strokes away all of the billions and billions of dollars in PPP loans, right? How can you?
I'm telling you that what I would do is
That pen strokes away all the PPP. That was the whole point of the PPP loans, was that if you use them for wages, they would be forgiven. That was the point. That was the program.
as president, if I were in Biden's shoes, is after all that was struck down, I would order the Department of Education to shred all communications and documents related to those student loans. Now, that ultimately that might not have been effective because you could have had whistleblowers being like, we can't do this. We have to save all the documentation. But that is what I would have done because I do think that it is important, and I think that after we have like the core, executive rulings from the immunity decision, all that stuff, I think you should have done it for sure. But in terms of that, you can't go after Biden on the student loan stuff. He did really try that, and the courts really did come over on that. And then after the court struck it down, he went with other, the SAVE plan, other methods to try targeted relief, and they forgave like billions and billions of dollars of relief. It was a very good thing they did. And it's one of those things that they did not communicate well. They did not communicate well. That was a tangible win for the American people.
Yeah, I was under the impression, Pisco, and you can elucidate this, because my impression was that within the power of the Higher Education Act, and I have a tweet about this from the past, I would be curious as a lawyer, I'm not a lawyer, but the Higher Education Act, couldn't he potentially, it says right here that there was no discussion of the actions that he could have taken through what's called the HEROES Act, and it lies within the power of the Higher Education Act of 1965, which he made no effort to pursue as a final effort after his initial ruling.
They tried both, and it was in the middle of the rulemaking situation. It took longer because there's additional procedures that they had to run, and they had to have a notice and comment timeline, and so they did end up using that authority that you're invoking. And the one additional thing he could have tried is, instead of capping at 10,000, 20,000, he could have gotten rid of it all. They had a stronger argument on that because the legal provision there was waive or modify, and the court basically said, well, they can do, you can waive all of it or you can modify a little bit, and they interpreted modify to be like a much more minor. But that would have been struck down anyway, and I think the court was signaling it that they were going to invoke what's known as the major questions doctrine. They didn't actually invoke the major questions doctrine in that case, but they basically signaled that if Biden tried to waive all the student loans, even though that was more cabined within the terms of the statute, that the Supreme Court was going to strike it down.
Yeah, it's really important to remember that anything that President Biden attempted to do via executive order or that could have been done congressionally via statute is still subject to judicial review, which means, to Pisco's point, the conservative supermajority on the court, they could have invented whatever the reason they want to grant cert to the case.
Here lies the fundamental problem with why Democrats always lose, because everything you just said might be true, but I don't care about it, right? Because
Thank you. Can we just open with that next time instead of wasting, so that I said this at the beginning, this is an unserious conversation. And there should just be two different, you should have like a separate show no, I mean, a separate show, like the other one. But like these are unserious people, okay? Thank you. You don't care about anything relating to the process or government or whatever else, okay? We understand that. But we should have skipped, why do we waste 40 minutes talking about this bullshit then, if you don't actually give a fuck about the process of governance at all?
Here lies the fundamental problem with why Democrats always lose, because everything you just said might be true, but I don't care about it, right? Because I just watched them forgive billions of dollars for rich assholes that bought votes with that money, and that's how the American people.
That's what the PP loans were for. Like, you've gotten brainwashed by retard media, and you're blaming Joe Biden for it. Like,
people feel. You know what I'm saying?
No, I totally
understand that.
We totally agree, but that's also another reason why I think for a lot of us here, court reform is so central to the case, and making it a case to the American people is so essential, because anything that you want done or we want done is going to have to be reviewed by the Supreme Court, and they're inclined to strike it down for precisely that reason. Trump will get away with his tax cuts for the rich and for all sorts of other egregious things because he has a sympathetic supermajority on the Supreme Court, and they're the final boss of democracy. Trump's the immediate problem, but the court represents an equally dangerous problem. It's just kind of looming in the background. You got to deal with both.
I want to say one other thing. Like, I am not just trying to constantly split the baby here. I do agree ultimately with Hutch in terms of the empirics of the makeup in the Congress and the fact that the base of the Democrats, they're not like the MAGA base. They don't exert that kind of control and power. And so I do think that Biden has to approach it a different way. Where I agree strongly with the vanguard is the following. Biden's presidency is a failure. It is a failure because the one most important thing that he promised, which is to restore the soul of this country and to stop Trump, he failed on. And that, not exclusively, there were other challenges that are outside of his control, the resurgence of COVID, inflation, that kind of stuff, which, I don't blame on him. But the failure of communication and the lack of engagement due to his frailty, and then the hubris, the arrogant decision that if you really, I know people are clowning on Jake Tapper and stuff, and for good reason, but if you read the decision-making process that wasn't ever there when they decided to run for re-election, that this is how they were running the administration. And you can't tell me that that was optimal in terms of the domestic policy front and that everything was running on four cylinders when you're not meeting with your cabinet. And so do I believe that Biden was doing everything in his power and everything within his communication ability while he was president on the domestic front? No, I don't believe that. And I think that there are probably other things he could have done. And I think that you don't need to go on the all-out, call Manchin a pig fucker. There are other approaches that I think he would have taken, Hutch. And I think what you have to grant, Hutch, even though I agree with you that you couldn't push Manchin move heaven and earth, and you ultimately probably wouldn't get $50 minimum wage, there was not even an attempt to signal. You have to grant that they did not even protest a little bit on that, and that has to be something you acknowledge.
I think in the case of Manchin, there was one time because people were complaining about the fact that he wasn't picking this fight, and I think he was asked a question at a press conference, and he said some mild criticism of Joe Manchin, and Joe Manchin turned around and wrote a op-ed for the Wall Street Journal that said he wasn't budging you. So my point is that
Hutch? What would you do? Would you let him dog walk you like that?
Hutch is absolutely correct. These guys just don't think that Congress is real. They have no respect for the Congress. Hutch is 100% right. People say, would you let him dog walk you? He owns you, little bro. He owns you. That is your final vote in the Senate. He kind of gets whatever the fuck he wants. It's kind of how it works. Yes. What are you going to do?
What is... You just told me
yeah, would you be Manchin's bitch, just like Biden?
No, I agree with you that you can't.
You have this precious little time and this precious little political capital to spend. It's just, these are the historical trends. George W. Bush after 9/11, that he was the only guy to buck this trend in the post-war era. Every single other time.
Hey, Biden bucked the trend. Biden bucked the trend in historic fashion in 2022.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about beating incumbents. I'm talking about when you give a trifecta to a government, or to a political party, the American voters, you only get 2 years. It's just way easier to be on offense 24/7 when you're out of power, which is why you're going to see the Democrats have a lot of success in special
So,
elections.
Hutch, is your position just that Joe Biden should have rolled over and he was right to roll over, and that Joe Manchin was totally cool to call the shots, and you don't really see much of an issue with that? Like,
You're
not frustrated by this?
You're trying to frame it as though that it's this moral issue, and it's not. No, it's not an issue of morality. It's an issue of practical consideration. If you only have so much time to deliver on your agenda with legislation that you can get passed through simple
Well, you're
majority.
saying that all it takes to stall
Why
an
would you-
entire piece of legislation is an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, and you're just going to, okay, Mr. Manchin, you're right.
If I thought that I could get something out of it, then obviously you fight. But I don't think you guys fully
But
appreciate.
that's what's gonna lead to more Donald Trump, though, dude.
I
If you
don't
want
think
to
you
have
guys
a
fully
situation
appreciate
where
that
you-
the Congress sometimes says no.
I'm not saying that the problem was that the Congress gave. I just gave you 10 other solutions of what I would do if the Congress said no to me. My man, what I'm trying to point out to you is that if the Democrats ever wanted to have a chance of winning, they have to deliver on some of these promises. I have a really good argument as to why they didn't deliver on any of these promises. But the
You said
American
your
people
solution was
did
you were
not
going to do
feel
an
that way.
executive order for everything that he would have done otherwise with the legislation, which is like a baby brain take.
That is
You
not a
don't-
baby brain take. I said, what could you do from the power of your desk?
You seem to suggest that the president can do whatever they want with an
Have you
executive
watched
order.
Donald Trump's presidency, my guy? Does it look like it's brain in check?
Check him on executive orders.
We're
Like
circling the drain.
I already told you
bro.
I agree with
We're
stacking the
circling-
court, Hutch.
we're-
I
we're
already
circling
told
the
you.
drain,
Why?
guys.
That's
We're
not even on
circling
the. That's a separate
We're
conversation.
continuing the circle. It's an infinite circle at this point. Can I propose a slight change of topic? Because we've
Yeah, and
talked about this. Well, I was just going to say, we've talked about this. One interesting topic to kind of tie into is right now, this is kind of a historical debate. What should Biden have done? But right now, okay, this is an interesting question. We've got this big kerfuffle with the Epstein files, okay? And there's a question, what should Democrats do with this controversy today? And what should they do if they capture a House in Congress in 2026? I think that's that's the flavor of the week, guys. That's what's going on right now.
It is the flavor of the week, and I think it actually does relate to what we were just talking about. Because in the modern era now, and like when we're not out of power, I am so pissed off at the people who are being pussies. I'm just so pissed off at the people who aren't fighters.
There is Destiny. They wanted Biden to be Trump. They aren't disgusted by Trump's methods, only his results. These people don't care about the Constitution. It's not about that, though. Trump is destroying everything. And you can destroy a lot if you're a destructive person, but they don't want a liberal president or a left-leaning president coming to destroy everything. They want them to like construct a whole bunch of things. It's significantly harder to do this, right? So you complain about Trump is able to do so much stuff via executive order. Okay, well, what's he trying to do? Tariffs on the entire world. Okay, so Biden comes in. What do you want him to do? Tariffs on the entire world? No, that's not constructive. Trump can be destructive in a whole bunch of different ways, right? Trump wants to come in and what, like revoke birthright citizenship? Okay, he can do it with an executive order. What do you want Biden to do? What's similar to revoking birthright citizenship? Like adding, like it's just they're like. Republicans are, especially Donald Trump, is like single-mindedly trying to dismantle. Like he dismantled the Department of Education and USAID. What do you want Biden to come in to do? Dismantle departments of the government? It's just.
I'm going to be honest with you in terms of like the messaging on this, on Mamdani, like the fact that we have conservative or I don't know, centrist Democrats or whatever you want to call them coming out and not supporting the nominee in New York pisses me the off. So I think that we should absolutely wield the bully pulpit on issues like Epstein, on issues like everything that Trump is doing. And I don't like the current leadership is failing us on that front. And the era of Kristen Cinemas has to be over. You can maybe make the case, and I would make the case actually that the conditions in 2021 were difficult for Biden. They were really difficult. He did not make the most of it. I agree, but they were genuinely difficult. But now we can't go back to that era where we're fighting for mansions and cinemas, and we need to primary the out of people like Fetterman, out of all, and I don't care if they're really in these.
What you need to do is you need to win more seats. That's what the mission has to be. I'm sorry, but anybody who talks about the necessity to primary people and like a 50-50, 51-49 split, it's a deeply unserious conversation. You need to shore up your base and you need to win some real margins. You need some actual seats before you talk about primarying people.
Uber, whatever districts, people like Glusenkamp Perez, I don't like them at all. If you are giving Trump like all of these signaling victories and you're like condemning like Al Green when he stands up for Medicaid and all that shit, that pisses me the fuck off. And so
the Al Green shit was cringe. That is true. The censorship of it was cringe as fuck.
Other people maybe who this didn't even apply to.
I will.
Check the tapes on this.
In the modern era now, and like when we're not out of power, I am so pissed off that on issues like Epstein, on issues like the era of Kristen Cinemas has to be over. You can maybe make the case, and I would make the case actually that the conditions in 2021 were difficult for Biden. They were really difficult. He did not make the most of it. Like condemning like Al Green when he stands up for Medicaid and all that shit. That pisses me the fuck off. And so whatever you want to say, we can relitigate for the rest of time Biden's failures and the system that existed in 2021. But I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to go back to where we're having to rely on the mansions of the world.